The next one was that I mentioned was about the bridge. And you would recall that I said at that time that I did not have the pre-feasibility study that we did because the ministry had taken it down from their website. So Patterson went to the press conference again and said, in the Kaieteur News, the hypocrisy, look at it, PPP administration supported location for new Demerara Bridge, Patterson. And he goes on to say things like, the minister said that some of Jagdeo's comments can be deemed as downright lies. He also said that the former president's latest remarks about the Demerara Harbor Bridge is one such case. And he quoted from the pre-feasibility study. The pre-feasibility study has shown that a high-level 4-lane fixed bridge at Houston-Versailles is the only economical feasibility alternative. That is what he's been saying. He then goes on to the next page to talk about non-disclosure. And he pointed out here that a cabinet paper, he showed the media a cabinet paper requesting $103 million from the cabinet in the PPP era. That money was allocated to do the pre-feasibility study, implied the $103 million. He then further said that we are such hypocrites that we went out to tender for the bridge and that the tender failed. That we had chosen this location, the Versailles location. We got $103 million from the Treasury to do the studies. And thirdly, we had gone to tender for the Versailles location, and the tender failed. Now, what's the facts? So, they have, this is the pre-feasibility study. Now, if you go through the pre-feasibility study, you will see, first of all, let's see the cost of the pre-feasibility study. So this is the feasibility study that they concluded. This was the pre-feasibility study. The cost of this study, pre-feasibility study, was not $103 million as he implied. It was under 30,000 US dollars. In fact, about 5.6 million Guyana dollars. That was the cost of the pre-feasibility study. This one, the feasibility study, rightfully so, cost $153 million. So the implication that $103 million was spent on a feasibility or a pre-feasibility study is false. Secondly, it shows Patterson's almost infantile understanding of what a pre-feasibility study is. A pre-feasibility study is just pulling together facts. That's why you will pay less than $30,000 for it, and the other one nearly $1 million US dollars. It pulls together some facts, and it examines these facts and would give a preliminary outlook on the basis of existing facts. It doesn't do numbers. It doesn't calculate in great detail the rate of return on an investment, etc., because that's not the purpose of a pre-feasibility study. So this pre-feasibility study that was done, guess what it compared? It compared a 4-lane fixed structure at Versailles that is a high bridge 4 lanes with no opening, compared with a 4-lane high bridge at Hope, fixed structure, and a floating, 2 options for floating bridges at Demerara Harbor Bridge. So, in a you can't compare like oranges with apples. That's the first thing the feasibility study did. Secondly, so on that basis, when this was submitted to the government did not, although it says on the basis of the numbers, existing numbers, it seemed as though this location for this type of bridge is the most economically feasible. It's not a feasibility study. So guess what the government went out to tender for? This is the ad, and I will share it with Kaichor because it was advertised in the Kaichor. The government in 2013 tested the market. Patterson needs to understand something about market testing. If it had made a taken a definitive position on the Versailles location, as the pre-feasibility study says, it would not have issued an expression of interest request in the latter part of 2013. And here is what the expression of interest is. The project framework for the new bridge is based on the following. The project will be implemented using a boot model in a manner similar to the Berbice Bridge. 3 possible sites have been proposed in the pre-feasibility study for the new bridge. 1, a location close to the existing floating bridge. 2, Houston East Bank to Versailles, West Demerara. 3, New Hope, East Bank, Demerara to Catarina, West Bank, Demerara. Any form of fixed crossing will be considered. A pre-feasibility study D for the construction of the bridge has been completed and can be accessed from the Ministry of Public Works website. Now, how would you go out to tender for 3 locations if you had chosen Versailles? And this was after the pre-feasibility study. This was called market testing. This is the fallacy. If these guys are serious about the bridge, then they would study the history, how these things evolve. But it's like losing. I don't want to go into any more details because it's more complex about the stream of benefits and the stream of costs over which we have huge concerns. And all of these determine the feasibility of the bridge. But our questions were simply this, and we go back to the questions which Patterson is yet to answer. 1 is what will be the increase in tolls? 2, what will be the subsidy? So the government study, on page 55 of the government study itself, it shows various options for the tolls and for subsidies. On page 55 of their study, it says at 100% increase in the toll, the government contribution will be $140.1 million US over the first 12 years alone. The subsidy for the bridge, including when the toll is increased by 100%, will cost 3 times the Berbice Bridge, the subsidy alone. If they increase it by 100%, it goes on. It says toll for river vessels be increased to 700% of the present rates. This is all we are asking that the country be told. What you're leaving for it in the future. What kind of debt you're leaving or subsidy on the Treasury. We pointed out the example of Suriname, where they built 2 bridges, fixed structure high bridges, and did it on the recurrent, on recurrent expenditure. And it caused the exchange rate to practically collapse. It was unsustainable. Countries like ours have to study these things carefully. So all we were saying, tell us what the toll level increase will be, how much subsidy you will give, what guarantee you will have to give on debts raised for the bridge, because if people default on those debts, then they will have to be taken by government. Then what structure are you going to use, boot or a government finance structure? If it's government finance, where is the money coming from? A loan, a grant, or revenue? Which one? You need to tell us that long before you make a decision on these matters. And how did the bridge end up on Stanley Ming's land? Until now, imagine Patterson said, I'm aware, I met with all of the people from whom we're acquiring land. And he doesn't know about that one. On the Versailles side, he only did it on the Houston side, so the bridge will end up in the sea. It wouldn't land there anymore. But it was all lies. I don't want to get into too many complex issues on the feasibility study because, let me tell you something. I've seen the cake shop-like operation that they're approaching this bridge on in the fashion, which is not alien to this government. Almost everything they blunder through. And then they blame the PPP for it. So I lied on this. I lied when I said we did not take a decision on the final, the Versailles-Houston alignment. Because if we had taken a decision, we would not have gone out for 3 locations after the pre-feasibility study was done. It's a lie, total lie.